let me ask you something. If you've ever thought about what exactly a business analyst does, you must have Googled this question: what does a business analyst actually do? And every single website lists the same answer. A business analyst is a bridge between stakeholders and technical team. Cool, but what exactly does that mean? Do we build software? Do we write documentation all day? Are we on calls all day? And what are the different meetings that I need to attend? And who are these stakeholders? Who are these technical teams? Like, what do I do? And why are companies paying these business analysts 8 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 25 lakhs, and in some organizations, 45 lakhs? And all of this just to be a bridge. Because see, that's exactly the problem. Nobody understands what this role of a business analyst actually has to do, and they just define it's basically a textbook definition, and they just kind of just say, yeah, we're a bridge between stakeholders and technical teams. But that's not the job description, is it? See, that basically is the problem. And the reason why this career is so confusing, and to find out what we can actually do in this career, because nobody explains what exactly we do. Nobody explains the career part of it. They just explain the definition. And definitions will not help you choose a career or a job. Reality does. And there are literally thousands of people paying for BA certifications, taking BA courses, applying for BA jobs. And if I've stopped them on the road and just asked them this question, like, what do you do from 9 to 5? No one, no one can answer, right? And honestly, it's not their fault, because we as veterans, as people who have been in this career for so long, have not done justice to it, have not explained what this job does, explained this profession, and we are doing an absolutely terrible job at trying to explain what we exactly do on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to fix that. All right. So by the end of this video, I want to ensure that you'll understand what exactly a business analyst does, what they don't do, and why companies actually hire them, why they pay so much, and more importantly, whether this is actually the right career for you. If we've never met before, hi, I'm Namita, and I spent the last 14 years working in tech. And I've been a BA, I've been in product, I've managed projects, I've managed engineering teams, and I've worked with multiple API teams, backend teams, front end teams, a lot of different segments. And I've also worked in multiple domains. Basically, I've spent years in the industry and in the corporate world to kind of tell you this. Half the jargon that people use exists only because it is there to confuse everyone else. There, I said it. So I want to make it more simple, right? I wanted this channel to exist only for one reason, and one reason only, is to explain careers, explain corporate, explain tech, and obviously business analysis and product without making your brain melt. Okay. And I want to take this first episode and answer the question everyone has been asking: what is what does a business analyst actually do, and whether it is the right career for you or not. So first, let's destroy the first myth that we have around this career. Okay. So people think that business analysts only write documentation, right? But no, we don't. I mean, we do, but that's not the job. Imagine this: if a doctor is writing a prescription, that doesn't make him a person who just writes prescriptions, right? Nobody pays the doctor to just write a prescription, right? You pay the doctor to diagnose, correct? Diagnose, what's exactly happening, what's actually going wrong with you. And the prescription is simply an evidence that you have done a diagnosis. And this, it's the same with business analysts actually. So when we go in, documentation is not the exact job, but it's a byproduct of what we think is the process, what we think is going wrong, what exactly is we are we trying to fix. So the major takeaway I want you to have from this video is that the documentation is not the job, but the thinking is, the diagnosis is, right? So that's probably the biggest mind shift that I want you to take from this video. Because if you really think that BAs are just there to do documentations, just write user stories, FRDs, BRDs, create templates, requirements, etc., well, congratulations, you've understood maybe like what, 5% of the job, and the rest of the job actually happens way before we write the document. So let's not overcomplicate this, right? Like, let's think about it from an example. All right. So imagine tomorrow morning you wake up as the CEO of Swiggy. All right. And you wake up, you open yesterday's numbers, and suddenly orders have dropped 20%. And immediately everybody has an opinion. Marketing is saying campaign didn't perform properly. Engineering is saying we didn't make any change. Finance is saying payments are looking okay. Customer support is saying, you know what, we've received double the complaints we get on an average day. And product is saying maybe the customers don't like the new checkout process. Now here's my question: who do you think actually is right? Like, you've got everybody guessing, and everybody, you're just walking into a room and everybody there has like years and years of experience, and somehow nobody can tell you what's exactly happening. Rather, they're just speculating, they're just thinking of what exactly can we do, right? There's a problem, how do we fix it? And nobody can actually tell you why that's happening, right? And that's the intersection where organizations need to realize that a BA needs to be present there. Okay, it's not because they're the smartest person in the room, or because they understand everything much better. No, exactly not. But because they are the first people to actually stop guessing. Hear me out, right? See, most people hear a problem, and this is just not everyone, like everyone in the Indian subcontinent, any subcontinent for the world, in the world for that matter, is that they hear the problem and they go into a problem solving mode. They're like, they just want to give a solution. Like, you have a problem, you're going to give a solution. So customer orders drop 20%, numbers are dropping 20%. The first solution is, oh, you know what, let's design checkout, let's just redesign it. Let's just invest in the newest tool that we have. Let's just launch a discount coupon. Let's improve performance. Wrong. Now, here is why a BA is going to help you in this situation, right? A BA is trained to be suspicious of obvious answers, right? So, experience gives you or teaches you something very, very quickly. It is that problem that people describe is rarely the actual problem. Okay, so let me say this again, because this is probably the most important thing that I want you to remember throughout. Whether you are a BA, whether you're not a BA, this is what I want you to remember. Okay, the problem people describe is rarely the actual problem. Okay, if a stakeholder is coming in saying, hey, I need a dashboard, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Like, you they just want to know or want to look at cleaner data, and that doesn't exactly tell you to create a dashboard. Rather, it is more their need of understanding or looking at what is actually going wrong and how you can actually interpret it, right? It's not currently the current dashboard that is completely wrong. They just they just want to look at cleaner data, right? They just want maybe access permissions, they want faster reports, they might have a training issue for all that matter, right? So not every problem is the first problem that people describe is the actual problem. Now, one of the most common dialogues that I'm hearing in the tech industry is, let's use AI, right? Like, why do you want to use AI? What is it going to solve? Do you actually need AI, or is it a broken process that you need to fix, right? And someone just saying the app is very slow. Compared to what? When? From when? And what are you saying slow at? Like, what is the metric that you're looking at, and on which device? Since when is it slow? Since are you experiencing a prolonged slowness, or is this something like a one-off instance, right? You see that every sentence is giving you an additional question that you're going to ask. Now imagine this: if there is a person who's not jumping immediately into the solutions, rather asking these questions, you get better solutions, or you get better understanding of what your actual problem is. Here's something that nobody ever tells you when you're trying to become a business analyst. Okay, so you're hired not because you know all the answers, but you're hired because you know how you think, how to think. Sit with that for a second, right? Because if companies knew exactly what the problem is, and they knew exactly what kind of solution will fit them, and if they knew exactly how to solve it, they can just might as well just give the requirements to the developers to fix, right? Or to develop, right? Why are they investing in somebody else to actually do the thinking and coming up with solutions and do all of that? The major reason that companies hire business analysts is because reality is messy. Yes, messy, right? People disagree, stakeholders contradict with each other, customers have different opinions, and they behave differently than what you expect them to behave, right? Departments fight over different priorities, and you don't have anyone who has the full picture. Nobody has the full picture. Trust me when I say this. Nobody has the full picture. Now, your job is to slowly build that full picture, right? That problem is. And then they start looking for a solution that helps them solve that problem. Now, that's exactly what you're being not paid for. Documentation, not Jira, and not anything compared to just sitting in a meeting, right? It's clarity. So let's go back to our previous example of Swiggy, right? So the CEO is in the room. He says the orders have dropped by 20% and he wants answers, right? Everyone's panicking. Everybody in the room are thinking, what is the exactly, why did this happen? Now imagine this with the business analyst who's coming into the room with a notebook and starts writing requirements. Absolutely not. In fact, if you ever see a BA starting to write a requirement without understanding the problem, you need to run. You need to definitely run, because that's not analysis, that's just documentation. And there is a massive difference in both. So, as a business analyst, what's the very first thing you need to be doing? You need to be asking questions. And what is the first question that you're going to be asking? What exactly happened? Right? What exactly happened? And you should not think like, what do we think that has happened, but rather, what has exactly happened, right? Because there are two different conversations for understanding sake, right? Like, because they won't tell you the actual thing that has happened, they think what went wrong, right? And that's completely different. Now please understand that opinions are free, but data isn't, right? So let's say someone says customers aren't completing payments, right? Okay, what does that exactly mean? What does customers not completing payments mean? Are they abandoning the cart? Are their payments failing, or did the app crash when we're making the payment, or did they ever click pay, did they click the button or did they not, right? And did the UPI fail, or did the card instance fail, the card mechanism fail? Was it only for iPhone users, or was it only for Android users? Was it on the website, or was it on the mobile version, right? And where are these users based out of? Is it in India? Is it in Hyderabad? Is it in Jaipur? Is it somewhere else, or is it all over the world, right? Like all over India? And were they trying to use just one particular bank, or was it multiple banks that were failing, right? Do you see what I'm trying to say here? I'm asking multiple different questions to clarify what exactly has happened, right? And before someone says, oh my god, this is so exhausting and she's asking so many freaking questions, yes, it is exhausting, and I am asking many questions because I need to understand what exactly is failing. The worst thing that you can do as a business analyst is actually believe the first explanation you've been told. Let that sit with you for a minute, because one of the biggest mistakes that I see beginners in this career doing. Let's assume a stakeholder just walks into a meeting and just says, you know what, customers need a dashboard. BA is like nodding, they're taking down the requirement, they are creating a Jira ticket, they are scheduling it in their backlog refinement, and the developers have started developing it. Congratulations, you've just wasted 3 sprints. Now, here's the thing, nobody has stopped to ask, why do the customers need a dashboard? Why? Right? Because I cannot tell you how many times the stakeholders have confidently told me a solution, and they've never explained to me what the problem exactly was. Right? Because honestly, I don't think they do it to make your life difficult. It's just that it's human nature. It's human nature, right? We all jump to conclusions, we all jump to solutions, we are trained in such a way that when you see a problem you need to solve it, right? And that's exactly what they're doing. And think about it, in some and nowadays, with the advent of AI and all, you go to a doctor, and you keep telling them, right? The patient keeps telling them, okay, hi, what's wrong with you? And then you're like, I think I have a fever, I think I've been having vomiting and all of that, and I asked ChatGPT this, and ChatGPT told me to do this. What are you doing? Right? You're not a doctor, you're not an expert, you cannot give a solution, right? If you go to a doctor, the first thing they will ask you is, they will ask you hundreds and hundreds of questions to understand what exactly is wrong with you and your body, right? They just don't prescribe an antibiotic just because you said you need an antibiotic, right? So why do you think that? What are your symptoms? Like, what have you taken anything recently? Have you eaten outside food recently? Have you already, have you had any medication? Do you have fever? Have you tested your fever? How much is it? All of this, right? So that is diagnosis, right? Before you prescribe a solution, what they're asking and you answering, and then they make an assumption of this could be wrong, and then they create a solution for it. Same thing with business analysts, they do the exact same thing, they diagnose. The only difference is the problem that a patient is telling. They are broken business processes, okay? So same thing, the only difference is the patients are broken processes in our case. And when you have to talk about it, you think about it from a way that, how is this process supposed to behave first, right? And now let me tell you something, that this completely changed my career and the way I worked. Is early on in my question, I thought asking too many questions to the stakeholder may make me look a little inexperienced, may make me look a little dumb. I was terrified of sounding stupid. I would not ask a lot of questions. I just sit in the meetings. I used to get these questions in my head, but I never said them out loud. I would Google them. I talk to developers privately on the chat interface, and maybe I'll ask my senior BA or somebody else who's there. And I would spend 4 or 5 hours extra than the meeting to actually, ask people in private some of these questions because I was very scared to sound stupid. Now, one day, there was this principal architect that was sitting in one of the meeting, and I was actually asking him after the meeting about a certain question that I had in the meeting, which I did not ask. When even though he mentioned, "Do you have questions? Anybody has any questions?" I did not ask that question. I reached out to him later on to ask a question, and he said, "Namita, if you are confused, I guarantee you that there are three more people in that meeting that could have been confused, and they also would have gotten the same answer that I'm giving you now, right? You just need to be brave enough to ask it in that forum. That's it." Because after that line, I realized one thing, that being a good business analyst isn't about understanding everything and having a solution already ready and planned out, but it's about being comfortable to say, "I didn't get that yet. I don't know why we are doing it. Why should we do this?" And sentence of "I don't understand this yet" has probably saved me from so many production issues that could have stemmed, and so many outages that we could have had if I was just following a template and not asking these questions. Okay, now getting back to our example of, let's imagine we went and we gathered some information, we gathered some data, we looked at, we spoke to customer support, we looked at analytics, we looked at, you know, to kind of look at what is exactly happening. Customers are reaching the payment page, but they when they click pay, it's actually taking about 8 to 10 seconds, and then they are just leaving from the page, right? So notice what happened. The actual problem of the customer orders have dropped. The actual problem exactly is customers are experiencing a delay when they hit the button pay, right? So you understand the difference where I'm going with this, right? Like, one is a symptom, the other is actually a user journey problem, right? And the job that you have right now is to bridge the two, right? So think of it this way: not all business problems are, you know user problems, and not all user problems are business problems. Sometimes you just need to find the intersection of both. Now, this right here is how you explain what a BA does, and I hope that gives you some clarity of what exactly we do. Now, here comes my most favorite part of the job. It's curiosity. Before you come back at me, yes, being curious is going to make you earn that salary, okay? Because that's where we stop taking the first answer that you get. All right. And let's say everybody in your development team, everybody in your engineering team is just saying it's probably the payment gateway. You have to think, probably no. Probably does it need another requirement? It does not need to go into root cause analysis. Probably doesn't help anyone, right? So what do we ask? When did this start? Did we deploy anything? Or is it happening for everyone, or is it happening only for a couple of users? And what are the different payment methods? What is the app version that we have, right? And can we reproduce this? What is the error that the user gets or we get internally? What is the error that we're getting? And do we see a pattern on what's happening here? Notice something. So none of these actually spoke about, coding. Not one, right? And every single question is making you do an investigation. And this is why I love when people say BAs are just paid to attend meetings and just document stuff, because the more conversations we have, from opinions, um, we try to move these conversations and opinions into actual evidence, right? And that's a very valuable skill. Let me be very honest, in this era, especially now when everybody has an opinion, everybody has a new thing to say, um, trying to find evidence in that is a skill. So let's take this one step further. And imagine after all this investigation, we realized, okay, we came back with and say, hey, we found the issue. Great. Now, here's another myth, right? Do you think a BA's job is over after finding the issue? No. In many ways, it's just the starting. Because once we have the answer to questions like, okay, now we found the issue and we know what to fix, how is the system supposed to behave after we fix it? Right? And what happens if there is a payment that is failing halfway? What do we do? How do we let the customer know? Right? And should the customer see an error on their end, or should we just send an email, or what? Right? And should they be able to retry? Should the order go through? What should happen? Right? So all of these are questions that the BAs need to ask. And once we identify the issue, how we are going to fix it is also something that starts with questions, a lot of questions, I might say. And this, by the way, is the sole reason and sole starting point of where requirements are actually born. And this is not because somebody sat down and started to just document stuff that everybody were talking about. Rather, they asked really good questions, and you got the answers from those questions. Now, if you'd have noticed, for the last n number of minutes that I have been speaking to you on this video, you would have noticed that I haven't mentioned a BRD, I haven't mentioned an FRD, I haven't mentioned user stories, I haven't mentioned Jira, I haven't mentioned Confluence, I haven't mentioned Visio or anything. And that's deliberate, because I think the internet has completely reversed what people need to learn about business analysis. And that's why everybody wants to start with tools, and nobody starts with the thinking and the mindset. And that's exactly what I keep telling people as well. Right? Now imagine trying to teach somebody to become a chef. All right, do you show them how to use a knife? No, right? Like, I know using a knife is important, of course, but um, you know not just by understanding how to use a knife doesn't make you a chef, right? Same thing here. No, the understanding how the tools work will not just help you, right? And they will not make you a good BA. Instead, understanding what a BA does and then learning the tools will actually be an added advantage for you, right? So knowing Jira does not make you a BA, knowing Confluence does not make you a BA, knowing how to write a bomb user story will not make you a BA. Okay? And knowing Babok and reading Babok front to back and memorizing everything will not make you a good BA. Please trust me on this. These are just tools. These The real skill that you need to develop is judgment and curiosity, and active listening, and all of these together will help you make that judgment, right? And judgment will only come through when you learn how to think on messy problems and how to come out of that messy problem. Now, here's another thing that many people won't tell you, and many folks will hate me for saying this, is that a business analyst spends a surprising amount of time being wrong. And I mean that. You are going to make assumptions, and some of them are going to be correct, some of them are going to be wrong. The difference between a good BA and a bad BA isn't that, a BA is never wrong. It's that the good BA finds out they are wrong very early on, and validation, that's why, is a huge part of the job, right? So a BA just doesn't write requirements and just disappear. You go back, you validate, you talk, you check, you challenge, you ask, is this what you meant? Or is this what you expect us to do? Instead of just saying, this is what you said. So there's a huge difference, right? So because stakeholders will often say one thing and mean another thing, and that's something you learn only with experience. Also, one more line that I really cringe when I hear is that the word or the line customer is always right. Well, about that, right? The customer is always right about the problem they're experiencing, but not exactly about the solution they want to do or want to have, right? So think about this for your own from your own life experiences, right? Have you ever gone to a doctor and confidently diagnosed yourself? Like, have you said, you know what, hey doc, I think I have dengue or I have malaria or something like this? Sometimes the doctor's diagnosis might just give you another different output than what you would have diagnosed for yourself. So, same thing, right? Stakeholders do the exact same thing, and they're experts in their business, no doubt, but you are the expert in analyzing the problems. And these are two different jobs, and one person is not going to be able to do that. Now, let's talk about meetings, because apparently, according to the internet, business analysts just attend meetings all day long. Do we attend meeting? Yes. Do we attend meeting, too many meetings? Also yes. But here's the thing, the meeting is not the work. The meeting is where you're collecting raw material, right? So the work actually starts after meetings. And the the part where we are working after a meeting is never publicized, right? You're sitting with multiple notes, multiple summaries, multiple point of views from different stakeholders, right? And half the stakeholders in the room would contradict with each other. So you take all the raw material, you synthesize it in your brain, and then you come up with like, hey, I think this is what we want to do. And again, just don't make an assumption, you validate it as well. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. And this is exactly why I feel business analysis and business analysts are one of the most misunderstood careers and professions in corporate. People understand, or people see documents, people see meetings, people see um, different decisions being taken by stakeholders, and people see different Jira tickets, Confluence documentation, and all of this, and they just think that's the job. But that's just like skimming the surface. It's just the surface. There's so much more underneath, right? The analysis, and the kind of questions you might be having, the validations, the assumptions, the questions, and all of this synthesizing of information is what happens in the back end. And this is the most unfulfilling thing that you might think that you might have in your career, right? Now, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, she's spoken so much and I really don't know if I'm going to be good at this, here's the thing that I would say, and the qualities. I've actually written it down in a notebook. I'm just going to read them out from the notebook. Okay, so the qualities that you need to be having are: you don't need to be good at coding, you don't need to be good at English, you don't need to have certifications, and only thing that I would look for in a BA is curiosity. Can you stay curious even when people have found the answer or they think they found the answer? Can you ask just one more question? And can you sit with that uncertainty for a little while longer instead of just rushing to a solution? Because if you can say yes to all of this, you are already thinking like a business analyst. Now let's go back to the original question that actually started this video. Is what does a business analyst actually do, right? And now that we've spent like some X amount of minutes with each other, I hope you realize that this role, there's no such thing as a typical day. There are days that you might be speaking to stakeholders, you might be writing documentation, you might be creating tickets, you might be mapping business processes, etc. And there are days you just are stopping and asking a lot of questions, right? So some days you're just staring at a process diagram, just thinking, who designed this and why do I need to fix this? Right. And there are days when you might feel, why is this so stupidly easy and why are they not getting it? The corporate industry, the IT industry has a special talent for creating process flows that somehow look like spaghetti, right? And somehow you are just expected to untangle them, right? But if I had to describe this job in just one sentence, I would say a business analyst is someone who turns uncertainty into clarity. Yes, that's it. That's the job. Everything else, like the meetings, the documentation, the user stories, the business processes, the wireflow, the wireframes, the process flows, the user flows, all of these are tools. The real work actually happens in your head. Now, if I were to think back and just realize, if somebody in had told me on day one that stop trying to be the smartest person in the room, rather just think about being the clearest thinker in the room, that would have saved me so many mistakes, so many hours, so many meetings that were inconclusive, so many meetings that were a waste of time, right? So now that's that's something that I'm giving to you guys. Stop thinking that you need to have a solution for everything. Just ask the right questions, that's it. And there's no right or wrong in questions also. If you don't understand something, just be curious enough to say why, right? And that's going to be a game changer. Now, I work with incredibly talented people, incredibly technical people, and they cannot explain a problem. And I worked with so many people who don't even know how to write a piece of code, and they can just walk into a room that is absolutely chaotic and come out somehow getting everybody on the same page, right? Now that, my dear friends, is an absolute superpower, right? And that's exactly what business analysts need to have. So now, before we wrap up, I'd like to say that the internet has convinced people that business analysts are documentation experts, people who just attend meetings. But I tend to disagree. And I think business analysts are professional sense makers, right? So we walk into messy situations, just come out with an aligned and different answer that many people thought was not even the answer, right? So just think about it this way. If next time somebody comes and asks you, what does a business analyst actually do, don't say they are a bridge that are bridging stakeholders and IT. Rather, just say that a business analyst is somebody who turns uncertainty into clear decisions or clear solutions. So, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to my rant. And secondly, welcome to Business Analysis Decoded. Right. So this is going to be a series that I'm going to be doing, where I am going to be talking about everything about business analysis, a lot of questions that you guys might be having, and you keep sending me these messages on Instagram. So I just thought, why not just do this in a long form format where I'm just sitting and talking to you and all of this, right? I plan to release a video where we're talking about business analysis and the questions you might be having in your head in plain English. I'm not going to overcomplicate stuff. I just want to give clarity to people, so that this is what someone would have told me when I started my career, and I just plan to do that. And if you've liked it so far, consider subscribing. And in the next episode, I plan to cover, do business analysts actually need technical knowledge? And I'll see you in the next one.